To get into the spirit of Halloween, I've been reading some scary fan fictions, but I really like fan fictions where they combine two things, sort of like a crossover, like Breaking Bad. So the fan fictions we'll be taking a look at today are specifically of the Spongebob slasher variety. This first one we'll be taking a look at today is written by Goji Rules and is called A Nightmare on Spongebob Street. And okay, first of all, Goji Rules, I don't know if you've seen an episode of SpongeBob before, but there's no SpongeBob Street. I know you're trying to reference A Nightmare on Elm Street, but I think a better title than that would be A Nightmare in Bikini Bottom, even though that would sound like a tampon commercial. SpongeBob has a dream where he's stalked through a boiler room by everyone's favorite demon, Freddy Krueger. When Krueger finally catches up with him, SpongeBob awakens in bed, screaming. Now, you probably noticed by now that there's a real emphasis on exclamation points, and using exclamation points are fine. They can build up like tension and suspense and that kind of thing, but what really lets the air out of the bag in this case is that every sentence in this fan fiction ends with an exclamation point.
Exclamation point.
So when SpongeBob's done with his little night terror, Squidward and Patrick go over to his pineapple to see what's wrong, and they find that he has 4 slash marks on his chest, just like from his dream. So instead of calling the police or going to a hospital or something, they all fall back to sleep, and SpongeBob and Squidward wake up the next day and go to the Krusty Krab and explain to Mr. Krabs what happened to SpongeBob. They tell the story, but Mr. Krabs merely laughs at them, but agrees to come over to see if it's true, as do Sandy, Mermaid Man, and Barnacle Boy, who were listening in on the conversation. In my opinion, Goji Rules, I don't think there was a reason to put an exclamation point there, for example. I was thinking at this point when I was reading this for the first time that maybe the keyboard that you were using had a broken period key, or maybe you just didn't know where the period key was. I don't know. That night, they all come over to SpongeBob's house, as does Patrick, and they all go to sleep. I don't really know why you had to point out that Patrick came over too, but okay. And I like how every single one of them goes to sleep, instead of one of them staying up to make sure that nothing is affecting them in the real world. They all just want to prove SpongeBob wrong so badly that they decide to all go to sleep with SpongeBob in the same house the night before SpongeBob woke up screaming with slashes on his chest. So of course they all have the same dream where Freddy Krueger kills all of them, with SpongeBob dying last because, he's the main character, so the main character dies last. Freddy appears in front of him saying, "The sponge has been overused, and now it's time to wring this sponge dry.
For good."
Then he says, "Welcome to my nightmare," before ripping his hands off and cutting him up. The second fanfiction we'll be taking a look at today is called Michael Myers vs. SpongeBob, and luckily for us, it's also written by Goji Rules, which means we get more of his signature exclamation points. Fantastic. And fun fact, both of these fanfictions were shot out in the same day, which means we know how much effort was put into writing these. It's Halloween night in Bikini Bottom, but this Halloween will be unlike any other before it. SpongeBob is returning home from work and is being watched by a certain someone. This someone comes out of his hiding place and is revealed to be Michael Myers. But why is he in Bikini Bottom? Well, it seems he got bored with Haydenfield and decided to go after a new game and a new hunting ground, and SpongeBob was the perfect target. You'll notice with this fanfiction and in many other fanfictions that the author doesn't really explain how or why things happen, like why is SpongeBob the perfect target and how can Michael Myers breathe underwater? It's because Goji Rules really respects his audience by giving us some ambiguity and not making us figure out for ourselves why certain things happen and how they can happen. So this next sentence, which really feels like a paragraph, I'm just going to read, and you can try and figure out what's going on. Michael attacks SpongeBob and Squidward, who is on his way home from work, sees that SpongeBob is in danger, and, not wanting to get in trouble with Mr. Krabs because SpongeBob is killed, he fights Michael, allowing SpongeBob to escape, but Michael kills Squidward and goes after SpongeBob. SpongeBob rushes into his house and locks all the doors and windows. but just as he thinks he's safe, he hears a noise coming from the kitchen. At first he's frightened, but is relieved to see that it's just Patrick looking for something to eat. To be honest, I actually enjoyed this part because you think something scary is about to happen, but it turns into a joke, and at the same time it also shows one of Patrick's character traits, so I could actually see this in an episode of SpongeBob, so I'll give you that, Goji Rules. I'll give you that. Michael Myers breaks into SpongeBob's house and kills Patrick, but SpongeBob escapes and goes to the Krusty Krab, where Michael Myers follows him and obviously kills Mr. Krabs while he's at it. So SpongeBob heads to the kitchen and makes bomb-shaped Krabby Patties and throws them at Michael, but doesn't feel burnt any and proceeds to attack SpongeBob. SpongeBob attempts to call the cops, but just as he tells him what's going on, Michael kills SpongeBob, but is arrested a few minutes later. That's the end of the story, so we don't really understand why SpongeBob waits until the last minute to call the cops, and how do bomb-shaped Krabby Patties work as actual bombs, you know? We just have to figure out those things on our own, because Goji Rules gives us that ambiguity and respect. To be honest, I don't actually recommend reading either of these fan fictions. I think we're still better off for now rewatching the SpongeBob Halloween specials.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain.
I can't hear you.
Aye, aye, Captain.